given me advice on getting kelpies out of a well," growled Hagrid, moving a half-plucked rooster on a scrabble table and setting down the teapot. "Like I know, and banging on about some banshee he banished. If one word of it was true, I'll eat mine now." It was most unlike Hagrid to criticize Hogwarts teacher, and Harry looked at him like surprise. Hermione, however, said in a voice somewhat higher than usual, "I think you're being a bit unfair. Professor Dumbledore obviously thought he was the best man for the job." "He was the only man for the job," said Hagrid, offering them a plate of Takatobi, while Ron coughed squealingly into his basin. I mean the only one. Getting very difficult to find anyone for the darker job. People aren't too keen to take one. See, they're starting to think it's jinx. No one lasts long for a while now. So tell me," said Hagrid, jerking his head at Ron, "who was he trying to curse?" "Malfoy called Hermione something. It must be really bad because everyone went wild." "It was bad," said Ron hoarsely, emerging over the tabletop, looking pale and sweaty. "Malfoy called her mudblood, Hagrid." Ron dived out of sight again as a fresh wave of slugs made their appearance. Hagrid looked outraged. "He did not," he growled at Hermione. "He did," she said, "but I don't know what it means." "I could tell it was really rude, of course." "It's about the most insulting thing he could think of," gasped Ron, coming back up. "Mudblood's a really foul name for someone who is muggle-born. You know, no magic parents. There are some wizards like Malfoy's family who think they're better than everyone else because they're what people call pure blood." He gave a small burp, and a single slug fell into his outstretched hand. He threw it into the basin and continued, "I mean, the rest of us know it doesn't make any difference at all. Look at Neville Longbottom. He's pure blood, and he can hardly stand a cauldron the right way up. And they haven't invented a spell our Hermione can't do," said Hagrid proudly, making Hermione go a brilliant shade of magenta. "Sweaty brows with a shaking hand. Dirty blood, see, common blood. It's ridiculous. Most wizards these days are half-blood anyway. If we hadn't married muggles, we'd die out." He retched and ducked out of sight again. "Well, I don't blame you for trying to curse him, Ron," said Hagrid loudly, already thoughts of more slugs hitting the basin. But maybe it is a good thing your warn backfired. Lucius Malfoy would have come marching up to school if you cursed his son. At least you're not in trouble." Harry would have pointed out that trouble didn't come much worse than having slug pouring out of your mouth. But he couldn't. Harry's Tickletoby had cemented his jaws together. "Harry," said Hagrid abruptly, as though struck by a sudden thought. Got a bond to Pickydia. I hear you've been giving out signed photos. How come I haven't get one? Furious, Harry wrenched his teeth apart. I have not been giving out signed photos, he said loudly. If Lockhart's still spreading that around. But he saw that Hagrid was laughing. I was only joking, he said, patting Harry gently on the back and sending him face first into the table. I know you hadn't really. I told Lockhart you didn't need her. You're more famous than him without trying. Bet he didn't like that, said Harry, string up and rubbing his chin. Don't think he did, said Hagrid, his eyes twinkling. And then I told him I've never read one of his books, and he decided to go. Chuckled Sophie Ron? He asked as Ron reappeared. No thanks, he said weakly. Better not risk it. Come and see what I've been growing, said Harry, as Harry and Hermione finished the last of their tea. In this small vegetable patch behind Hagrid's house were a dozen of the largest pumpkins Harry had ever seen. Each was the size of the large boulder. Gotten on the wall, aren't they? Said Hagrid happily, for the Halloween feast should be big enough by them. What if you did been feeding them? Said Harry. Hagrid looked over his shoulder to check that they were alone. Well, I've been giving them, a bit of help. Harry noticed Hagrid, flowery pink umbrella, leaning against the back wall of the cabin. Harry had reason to believe before now that this umbrella was not all it looked. In fact, he had the strong impression that Hagrid's old school wand was concealed inside it. Hagrid wasn't supposed to use magic. He had been expelled from Hogwarts in his third year, but Harry never ever found out why any mention of the matter, and Hagrid would clear his throat loudly and became mysteriously deaf until the subject was changed. An engagement charm, I suppose, said Hermione halfway between disapproval and amusement. Well, you've done a good job on them. That's why your little sister said Hagrid, nodding at Ron. Met her just yesterday. Hagrid looked sideways at Harry, his beard twitching. Said she was just looking round the ground, but I reckon she was hoping she might just run into someone else at my house. He winked at Harry. If you ask me, she wouldn't say no to a sign. Oh, shut up, said Harry. Ron snorted with laughter, and the ground was sprayed with slugs. What should? Hagrid roared, pulling Ron away from his precious pumpkins. It was nearly lunchtime, and as Harry only had one bit of tickle toffee since dawn, he was keen to go back to school to eat. Ron he caught occasionally, but only bringing up two very small slugs. They had barely set foot in the cool entrance hall when a voice rang out. There you are, Potter, Weasley. Professor McGonagall was walking towards them, looking at them. You will both your you will both do your detention this evening. Why were you doing? Said Ron, nervously spursing a bob. You will be polishing the silver in the trophy room with Mr. Filch, said Professor McGonagall, and no magic Weasley elbow grease. Ron gulped. Argus Filch, the, the caretaker, was loved by every student in the school. And you, Potter, will help Professor Lockhart answer his fan mail, said Professor McGonagall. Professor, can I go and do the trophy room too? Said Harry deparently. Certainly not, said Professor McGonagall, raising her eyebrows. Professor Lockhart requests you particularly. 8 o'clock sharp, both of you. Harry and Ron slouched into the great hall in the state of deepest gloom. Hermione behind them wearing a "well, you did break school rules" sort of expression. Harry didn't enjoy his shepherd a pie as much as he thought. Both he and Ron felt they'd got the worst deal. Phil should have met there all night, said Ron heavily. No magic. There must be about 100 cups in that room. I'm no good at muggle cleaning. I swept any time, said Harry hollowly. I've had loads of practice with the Dursleys. Answering Lockhart's fan mail, he'll be a nightmare. Sunday afternoon seemed to melt away, and in what seemed like no time, it was 5 minutes to 8. Harry was dragging his feet along the second floor corridor to Lockhart's office. He gritted his teeth and knocked. The door flew open at once. Lockhart beamed down at him. "Ah, here's the Scallywag. Come in, Harry. Come in." Shining brightly on the wall by the light of many candles were countless framed photos of Lockhart's. He had even signed a few of them. Another large pile lay on his desk. "You can address the envelopes," Lockhart told Harry, as though he was a huge treat. "This first one to Lady Goodson. Bless your huge fan of mine, the mini snail boy." Harry let Lockhart's voice wash over him, occasionally said, "And writing, yeah, now." And then he caught a phrase like, "Fame's fickle friend, Harry, or celebrity. He's a celebrity. Just remember that." The candle burned lower and lower, making the light dance over many moving faces of Lockhart watching him. Harry moved his aching head over what felt like the thousandth envelope, writing out Veronica's mouthy address. It must be nearly time to leave, Harry thought, miserable. Please let it be nearly time. Please let it be nearly time. And then he heard something quite apart from the speeding of the dying candles and Lockhart's prattles about his fans. It was a voice to chill the bone marrow, a voice to breathtaking, ice-cold famine.